Because direction, not intention, determines our destination. And what Daniel did when faced with a moral and a spiritual dilemma was he picked his path. What's really interesting here is, if you've heard the Bible story of Daniel, you may not know this, but when he was thrown in the lion's den, he was 75 years old. You are never too old to do the right thing. You are never too far down the path to choose integrity. And the cool thing about Daniel's story is that when he arrived in Babylon, he was 15 years old. And we see him at that young age pick the right path. You see, as a political prisoner of war, Daniel was brought as a 15-year-old into the palace to serve the king. And all the king's slaves had to eat the food that the king gave them. And that food was food that was dedicated to the idols, the gods of Babylon. And like in any war situation, if you had food, you flourished. And if you flourished, you were a success. And if you succeeded, the provider of your food got the credit. Daniel knew that if he ate the food dedicated to those idols, they would get the credit and the honor for his success. And so as a 15-year-old boy, this is what he said to the king. But Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and wine given to them being him and his friends, who I'm going to talk about just now, by the king. If you're in high school, if you're home from college for the holidays, this guy's your age. What you choose in your teen years can determine the trajectory of your life. Because direction, not intention, determines your destination. See, Daniel made up his mind ahead of time. He didn't wait for the crisis to choose the right thing. He didn't wait till he was under pressure to say, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to show up. And if we want to live a life where we experience success and security and God's provision and purpose, no matter what's going on out there, we simply have to pick our path. We have to pick the path. The second thing that we see in the book of Daniel that will help us to stay on the road less stupid, the one that will lead us where we really want to end up, is to look for the red flags, to recognize what they are. And if you're wondering what those red flags are, I heard this when I was in my mid-20s from an American pastor who came and did some leadership coaching with us in South Africa. And he had been the leader of a huge mega church, and like too many stories, had an affair, had to step away from his career, step away from his ministry. He disappeared from public life, came back many years later, still married, restored marriage, and him and his wife started an organization to support leaders so that they wouldn't fall into the same pitfalls and into the same trouble that he had. And this is what he told us. There are 2 red flags. And if you hear yourself saying one of these 2 things, you're in trouble. Number 1, it will never happen to me. And number 2, I deserve this. Have you ever thought those things? Maybe you see someone making terrible decisions. Their life is imploding and you think, I would never do that. I would never cheat on my spouse. I would never get dependent on substances, or I would never fudge the finances. Red flag for integrity. Because as my dad so often wisely counsels leaders, he says, no one is above temptation. We are all capable of making one bad decision that ruins our lives. No one is immune, and if you think you are, you're in trouble. The lie, I would never do that, creates a blind spot in that private and public self dynamic that can lead us down the wrong path. What about the I deserve this one? Oh, you know what, Jess, I have just been through so much. I deserve to cut myself some slack. Or Jess, you don't know what people have done to me. I just need to, what I'm doing now is not as bad as what they did to me. I deserve this. Or what about, you know what, I work so hard, I deserve to just blow off some steam. Who cares? I deserve this. These are red flags that tell us we're at a dangerous intersection, a dangerous fork in the road. And what we see in Daniel's life is the humility to say, I could be wrong. I can make a mistake. And so I have to stick to the path of integrity. And then finally, if we want to live with peace, if we want to live successful, productive lives, then we simply have to just do the next right thing. If you're wondering, what is the next right thing, Jess? Well, if you don't want it in the papers, don't do it. Okay? If you don't want it on TikTok, don't say it. That's a good way to start with what is the next right thing. But there, if we look closer into the book of Daniel, we see something really profound that is actually found throughout the story of the Christian faith. And it is this, that we are not in control of the outcome. We are only in control of doing the next right thing. Daniel's primary concern, the thing that kept him up at night, was not the outcome, was not what's going to happen to me, what if, what about God, it was how do I do the next right thing?